Hi, I'm Kevin, and I do a lot better on these when it's live streamed. So on mobile, go figure, right? So I'm here to talk about the St. Louis Blues hockey. This is Blue 22. The night St. Louis finally looked like themselves, Kevin Shattenkirk was quietly holding the whole thing together. So welcome back to Blue 100. We're traveling backwards through Blues history, one player and one game at a time. Kevin Shattenkirk, this is the date of today's game, is April 23rd, 2015. Technically, it was played late on April 22nd in Minnesota, but the recaps landed after midnight. So we're talking about Game 4 of the Western Conference first round. The Blues, the Wild, and a series that had already become deeply annoying. St. Louis finished 51-24-7 with 109 points and won the Central Division. They were deep, heavy, and they were built to win right now. Minnesota was technically the wild card, but that label was misleading. They finished with 100 points and transformed after trading for Devin Dubnyk in January. And they were fast, organized, and comfortable letting St. Louis get increasingly frustrated. The Blues and the Wild split the regular season series, and then they split the first two playoff games. Minnesota won Game 3, 3-0, and in doing so, they made the Blues look slow and unsure of themselves. It's not where you want to be. Game 4 wasn't an elimination game for St. Louis, but emotionally, sort of felt like one. Go down 3-1, and another terrific regular season is about to become another Blues punchline. What would you have changed after Game 3? Would you have changed the lines, the goalie, or would you have told everybody to calm down and play the way they've played for 6 months? Ken Hitchcock chose the last option with a little line shuffling. Alexander Steen went back behind David Backes and TJ Oshie. More importantly, though, the Blues stopped chasing Minnesota around the rink. Kevin Michael Shattenkirk, born January 29th, 1989, New Rochelle, New York. He grew up a fan of the New York Rangers, played youth hockey with the New Jersey Devils program, attended Brunswick School, and then entered the U.S. National Team Development Program. He wasn't a big, giant defenseman, and intimidation, that's not what his game was built on. His game was movement. Get the puck, create an angle, find the seam before it closes. Colorado took him 13th overall in the 2007 draft. Before turning pro, Shattenkirk went to Boston University and helped the Terriers win the 2009 National Championship. In the title game against Miami, BU trailed by 2 with less than a minute remaining. Tied it, then won in overtime. Shattenkirk assisted on Colby Cohen's winner. Shattenkirk later became BU's captain as a junior, and offensive defensemen can sometimes get treated like freelance contractors. Shattenkirk was trusted with the room. He was the quarterback. He made his NHL debut for Colorado in November 2010 and immediately ran off a 9-game point streak. Then, only 46 games into his career, he got traded. The Blues sent Eric Johnson and Jay McClement to Colorado. St. Louis received Shattenkirk and Chris Stewart, with draft picks involved. Shattenkirk quickly became more than the younger defenseman attached to the deal. He fit. He could quarterback the power play, make the first pass, and jump into open ice. By 2014, he was an Olympian for Team USA. By January 2015, he played in his first NHL All-Star game. Then he injured his abdomen on February 1 and needed surgery. He missed roughly 2 months. If he was a pitcher in Major League Baseball, he would have taken a year and a half, right? Anyway, 2 months after surgery, he came back, and that's pretty impressive. 8 goals and 44 points in only 56 games. He finished 15th in Norris Trophy voting. Now, through 3 games against Minnesota in this series, Shattenkirk already had 5 assists. The Blues had only scored 6 goals. Even while the team looked stuck, number 2 was finding all the exits. So what makes an offensive defenseman great to you? Is it the points? clean breakouts, or is it the ability to make everybody else look like they suddenly have more room to work? St. Louis came out like a team that had spent 48 hours getting yelled at. They probably had. 5 minutes and 34 seconds in, Ryan Reeves drifted high and hammered a one-timer past Dubnyk. Your fourth-line wrecking ball scoring from the point, usually a decent sign. And 85 seconds later, Shattenkirk sent the puck towards the net from the right side. Tarasenko got a piece of it, 2-0. Then at 10:06, the Blues struck again. Oshie worked the puck back to Shattenkirk. Shattenkirk got it towards the middle, and back is finished, 3-0, before Minnesota had even settled down into the game. 2 nights earlier, the Wild had smothered St. Louis. Now they had 4 shots in the first period. Minnesota finally got some oxygen early in the second when Jared Spurgeon scored on the power play. The building woke up for about 2 minutes. You could feel it almost starting to turn, but then Paul Stastny came down through the right side and snapped one through Dubnyk, 4-1. And that goal killed the idea before it could grow. You notice how some goals change the score, while others change what both teams believe is possible? At 15:47, Shattenkirk picked up his third assist. He moved the puck to Jori Lehtera. Lehtera found Tarasenko, and Tarasenko ripped in his second goal. Patrick Berglund added another less than a minute later, 6 goals on 17 shots. Dubnyk was pulled, Darcy Kemper came in, and the last 23 minutes were just filling out paperwork. Shattenkirk finished with 3 assists, giving him 8 in 4 games in the series. He didn't score goals. He didn't throw the biggest hit. He just kept beginning the actions that broke Minnesota into little pieces. For a few hours, it felt like the Blues had solved the entire series, but they hadn't. We'll get there. Hitchcock said it looked like the Blues had finally joined the tournament. When St. Louis checked properly, offense followed. They weren't built to win a track meet. They were built to take away space and make every shift unpleasant. Backus said the Blues had to assert themselves, but he warned against the every other game pattern. That concern turned out to be pretty sharp. Shattenkirk spread the credit around. The Stars played real good, but so did the full lineup. Reeves scored, Stastny scored, Berglund scored. Jake Allen only faced 18 shots. And on the other side, Zach Parise said the Wild may have gotten cocky after Game 3. Mike Yeo was blunter. St. Louis was on top of its game, and Minnesota wasn't even close. After 4 games, each team had won, once at home and once on the road. Each had blown the other out. The series was now a best of 3. At that moment, who did you trust more? The more talented Blues or the Wild team that seemed more comfortable in its own skin? Game 5 was back in St. Louis. Minnesota won 4-1. Game 6 went back to St. Paul. Minnesota won 4-1 again. That Game 4 explosion became the last Blues win of the season. Shattenkirk finished the series with 8 assists, leading either team in points. But St. Louis was eliminated in the first round for the 3rd year in a row. That's the frustrating thing about that era. The Blues were good. The Blues were good enough that... There's an airplane. The Blues were good enough that losing early felt impossible, then familiar, and then almost like it was scheduled. A year later, they finally broke through, beating Chicago and Dallas before losing to San Jose in the Western Conference Final. Shattenkirk remained a major piece through that run. In 2016-17, he reached a career-high 56 points, but St. Louis knew free agency was coming and traded him to the Capitals. That summer, he signed with his childhood team, the Rangers, and it should have been a perfect homecoming, but instead a knee injury, surgery, and a rebuild swallowed much of it. New York brought out the final 2 years of his contract in 2019. And that might have been where the story tilted permanently downward. Instead, Shattenkirk signed a 1-year deal with Tampa Bay. He scored 34 points in the regular season, then added 13 more in the playoffs. In Game 4 of the Stanley Cup Final, he scored the overtime winner against the Dallas Stars. Two games later, he was a Stanley Cup champion. Is redemption sweeter when everybody has already decided that you're finished? Shattenkirk later played 3 seasons in Anaheim and 1 final year in Boston. He retired in December 2024 after 14 NHL seasons. His final numbers: 952 regular season games, 103 goals, 381 assists, 484 points. He added 48 points in the playoffs, played in the Olympics, made an all-star team, and won the Stanley Cup. For the Blues, he produced 258 points in 425 games. He wasn't there when St. Louis finally won it all in 2019, but he helped drag the organization towards believing that it could. So, in the 1904 Olympic Marathon in St. Louis, the first man across the finish line had ridden part of the course in a car. He was disqualified. The actual winner, Thomas Hicks, had been given strychnine, egg whites, and brandy. Another runner stopped to eat rotten apples and took a nap. One competitor was chased off course by dogs. Only 14 of 32 starters finished. So whenever someone tells you that modern sports have become too chaotic, remember that St. Louis once hosted an Olympic race featuring poison, vehicular assistance, bad fruit, and wild dogs. Next time we jump from playoff hockey in 2015 to early season NBA chaos in 2007. Warrior 47 is Al Harrington, November 3rd, 2007. Golden State was still glowing from the We Believe run, but the new season opened with 2 ugly losses to Utah. In the second one, Harrington dropped 38 points on 15 of 20 shooting, and the Warriors still lost by 23. So how does somebody play almost perfectly and still get buried? That's next. But this one was Kevin Shattenkirk. Game 4 wasn't a goal-scoring showcase. It was a demonstration of control. 3 assists, clean decisions, and the puck moving before Minnesota could get set. The Blues didn't win the series. Shattenkirk didn't finish his career in St. Louis. But Blue 100 isn't only about perfect endings. It's about finding the nights when a player showed exactly what he was. On this night, Kevin Shattenkirk was the connector. The Blues finally looked dangerous again because number 22 kept putting the next man in position to hurt somebody. Thanks for watching. Maybe I'll see you next time. I'm Kevin.